To get us started, I've invited local business person Kelly Lopotko, financial advisor at Edward Jones, to briefly share her story as it relates to today's topic of networking. So Kelly, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Can everybody see me? All right. Can you see me okay?
Kelly, I think you need to start your video.
Okay. Something has gone really strange with my computer. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
There you are.
Okay, very good. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Sorry for that technical difficulty there, but thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for inviting me for today's topic. I'm looking forward to sharing some of my experiences with the group. As Catherine said, I work for Edward Jones. I have an office here in Chillicothe. I worked prior to Edward Jones as a financial advisor. I worked in banking for 16 years. And about 1.5 years ago, I shifted gears and I decided to pursue more of what I'm passionate about. And so I started studying to become a financial advisor. And I work with Edward Jones, like I said. It's been about 1.5 years that I've been here in Chillicothe. And I love Chillicothe. I love working in this town. Prior to working in Chillicothe, I worked in Peoria. So I did a lot of my networking in Peoria. And so shifting gears, shifting careers, shifting companies, shifting towns was all happening at the same time. So when I became, my office was established in Chillicothe, I knew that I needed to start building some roots and some connections and some networking opportunities within the town, within Chillicothe. So I looked for what was happening in the community. So I kind of asked around. I had experience with the Peoria Chamber of Commerce. So that was my first, what I decided to do first. Is a lot of your local towns obviously have a Chamber of Commerce. So that's where I went first. So got involved with the Peoria Chamber of Commerce, started meeting people there, and just having conversations with people at the chamber and asking lots of questions made me look for opportunities in other organizations. So what I tried to do is use my past experience and my past job to look for the opportunities that would kind of be seamless, so to speak. So another thing that has worked for me with choosing some of those organizations to start networking with is, what am I strong at? So I think sometimes when you look at where you want to network and where you want to become involved, is really start looking into yourself and looking to see what it is that you like. What is it that you're passionate about? Because I think sometimes when it is down deep inside, it also brings up more excitement and more involvement. And I think that's really important to be involved, but it's something that you're passionate about too. So I looked for opportunities with the chamber. And so then things from there just kind of surfaced. I also looked at the Optimist Club. I think that's one thing when you're looking for something to become involved with and networking, things grow out of each other. So that Optimist Club in the Chillicothe area grew from the chamber connections that I made. And then from there, I began to realize that with chamber, there's a lot of business connections. At the bank, I really enjoyed working with businesses because that was a big part of my job as a manager when I managed an office in Peoria. And so the chamber, my experience, leaning on my experience with that, what I did in my previous role, knowing that the Chamber of Commerce, that's a lot of business members as well. I really strongly connected the two. And from there, I just kind of realized sometimes two things can be a little bit nerve-wracking or scary. I think sometimes when networking comes up, sometimes it can feel uncomfortable. And just a couple of things that I try to remind myself of is keep on being uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So I really try to remind myself of that. That's a big key thing that I always try to push myself to be a little bit uncomfortable. So I think that's important to know too. Sometimes it doesn't always come easy, networking or putting yourself out there or making new connections or making new friends or making new the business connections. I think sometimes it can feel a little uncomfortable, but I think we all have that little bit of angst sometimes. But I think if you remind yourself that when you're uncomfortable, you're growing, that's really, really important. So the other two things that I just wanted to share for me for networking is I remind myself that there's power in partnership. And kind of with the uncomfortable, you might feel uncomfortable when you're asking for that first maybe meeting or that first just to get to know each other a little bit more. Just remind yourself over and over and over in your head that there's so much power in partnership. And people, even if they can't specifically help you now or you can't specifically help them now, the partnership is really what's meaningful and what matters in the long run, because I think generally people are helpers. People want to help other people. And if you can't help them or they can't help you right at this time, the goal is for connections and networking to be that person, to have that bond, to have that relationship, to have that groundwork already laid. So for when down the road, somebody might need you, or somebody will say, hey, I need, somebody to help me with this. And then they can be like, oh yeah, I remember, I talked to Kelly and she does that. So I think the partnership piece is so, so important. And the other thing that I like to remind myself of and I like to share is that small choices add up to big results. So things that you are doing now, things that you are doing today, and you may feel they're small, but over time, those small things are going to add up to big, big, big results later. So that's kind of my 2 cents, my experience. Keep being uncomfortable. Keep remembering there's power in partnership, and small choices out to big results. Those are my big takeaways or my advice to those who are looking forward to networking opportunities. Find things you're passionate about, connect that way, and just continue to be yourself and to look for ways to make you happy and make others happy. So that is what I have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I appreciate that. Okay, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's main speaker, Rebecca Bledsoe. Rebecca is a business development consultant with Dale Carnegie Training of Greater Illinois, where she partners with individuals and organizations to develop competencies of key employees in the areas of leadership, communication, sales, and presentations. She has 30 years of sales experience, along with 10 years of leadership coaching and training. Rebecca has lived in Central Illinois for her entire life and has a bachelor's in business administration from Illinois Wesleyan University. Rebecca Bledsoe, welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. And it's such an honor to be here. I appreciate being able to take part in this series. You've done such an excellent job of organizing it and bringing so much valuable information to the community. You get my slideshow up here. And Kelly, your 3 takeaways were awesome. I was taking notes, and you are so right, especially the whole, if you're not uncomfortable, you're definitely not growing. So that's one thing I always like to keep in mind with networking. So we're going to be talking about creating lasting connections. I can get my PowerPoint to advance. It's not wanting to advance for some reason. I guess this is the day for technical difficulties, evidently. Let me try that again. There we go. Now, hopefully, yeah, there we go. All right. So today, we're really talking about when we next level our networking skills, we stand out and create strong connections that result in growth for our businesses. So today we're discussing how to be intentional with our networking so we can create results with the time and money invested in those efforts. So one thing is, oftentimes we might go to a networking event. We know it's a networking event. We know we're planning on meeting people, but we might not really have a plan. And I definitely used to fall into this category where I would go, I would know I'm networking, but not really have a real specific plan. So before we attend a networking event, it's really important to define who is our target market. So who is our target market? Who are we looking to meet? We're not always going to meet only those people, or maybe we may not meet any of those people at a networking event, but we're at least going to look, who's our target market? Who do we want to be working with? And what kind of events do those people attend? So networking is always fun. I always enjoy meeting new people, but there are times where I've gone to networking events and afterwards I realized, okay, those aren't the people that I need to be working with for this business. With Dale Carnegie, we're working with specific, we have certain businesses, certain things that we can actually help people with. So I want to look at, are these the type of people that I can actually help? Because if not, I'm probably not going to go back to that same exact networking event again. So what types of events do those type of people attend? And then one thing I really try to focus on before I go, like I like to go to chamber events lots of times. And chambers are kind of nice for the fact that we can look at their list of members and see who we would maybe want to try to meet or get introduced to out of those members. And we can look at what are the pain points of some of these people that will be at the events. It's pretty easy to Google, especially industries. So let's say we Google the financial industry and we look at what's going on currently in the financial industry. We can get a sense of some of those pain points. We can check out a certain company's website. So there are lots of ways that we can research to really know who we are trying to meet and what we're trying to, it's going to help us with what we're trying to accomplish. So before we go, just like Kelly was saying, getting out of your comfort zone can be rough. There are definitely times where I have gone to networking events where I haven't really felt like showing up as, a really positive person, or maybe things were going on that it just wasn't my day to want to network. But it's not about what we want to do, it's about what we plan to do and carrying that out. So of course, image is important. We have 7 seconds to make a first impression and we only get one chance. So how do we want to show up? Do we want to look professional? Is it, who are we trying to connect with? What's the event? The attire, but attitude is huge. And I had this happen. So when I started with Dale Carnegie back in November, I wanted to get connected. A part of my territory is north of 80. And so like I have the Rockford area and I wanted to get connected in Rockford, but I didn't know anyone there. So I decided that the Chamber of Commerce would be a good place to start. And I had to leave at like it was like 4:15 in the morning. I left to go up to this networking event that started at 7:30. And on the way, even though I didn't know this was forecast, there were awful snows all the way up there, kind of off and on, and it really delayed my time. I had left in time to get there pretty early. Really delayed me. As I got closer, I realized I was going to be a little bit late. I didn't want to walk in late. I didn't know anyone. It had been snowing. It was like a rough morning, not much sleep. And so I had to have a talk with myself before I got there to make sure that I showed up in the way that I had intended to show up, no matter what had happened that morning. So really just going in with a positive attitude and deciding that in our encounters with people, we are going to focus on lifting people up instead of dragging them down. So I didn't feel super positive, but once I walked in and, started connecting with people, that helps too. You kind of forget about yourself and you can go in and just be the person that you want to be the way that you normally like to show up. And another thing is to really think about what am I going to say? We're going to talk about the elevator pitch in a while. What am I going to say to people? What am I going to ask? Not overthink it, but we want to have kind of an idea and a plan, and we want to know if someone asks what we do, we want to be able to answer that in a way that is going to work with, with their organization, as long as it's true to what we do. So really giving some thought to things. Sometimes we just show up and don't really plan ahead. So we know how we're going to show up. We know some things we're going to say or ask, or some general ideas of questions. And then who do we want to connect with? And that is when we've done the research in the beginning to see maybe who's going to be there, what types of organizations we're working with, who do we want to meet? Or lots of times, like Kelly said, the person you're talking to might not be that person you want to connect with, but they might know the person that you want to connect with, or they might eventually meet the person you want to connect with. So that's something we can ask even, hey, I wanted to connect with this person. Do you know this person? So if we have that in mind. And the other thing that's really helpful is to think about, how many people do I want to connect with? Because it's easy, going back to the comfort zone, if we meet someone at a networking event where we don't know anyone, it's really easy to get really comfortable talking to one person who's a really nice person to talk to, and spend the whole time talking to that one person. And obviously they came there to network, probably with more than one person, and so did you. So if we kind of have that in our mind, like maybe I want to meet 10 people while I'm there, then we've at least got that in our mind. We might not accomplish the 10, but we at least kind of have that as our goal. And that's going to help keep us moving ahead of time, where it's easier to just kind of wimp out if we don't set that intention ahead of time and be like, oh, I'm good with this one person. So then we want to prepare our elevator speech, and we're going to talk about that next. And then think about, do we want to take digital business cards or paper business cards? But definitely some business cards. I've been to networking events where people don't have, like, oh, I forgot to bring my business cards. So one thing I really like, right now I currently have a paper business card, but I have used digital business cards in the past. I really like the digital business card for the aspect of it's really easy to get someone's contact information with that. And let's say someone doesn't have a business card on them, then you're not going to get their contact information, but maybe you're going to give them your business card. So then that just leaves the ball in their court to contact you, unless you somehow get their phone number. So it's kind of nice with the digital business card. You've got it on your phone, and you can be, you can look down at your phone and be like, hey, I'm going to send you my digital business card. What's your number? And then you just wait until they give you your number, and then you enter it in and send it to them right then. So there can be some advantages to digital. You can have both, or just kind of see what the circumstance is, but that's something to give thought to. So on our elevator pitch, can't talk. I was looking at short and pitch. What are we going to say to these people when they ask us what we do? And this is something, honestly, I just learned in the last year. Previously, if someone asked what I did, I would just say, I'm a business development consultant with Dale Carnegie Training. So what's missing in that? What is that answer missing? I know you can't come on and just talk, but think about what is missing in the answer. First of all, do you know what a business development consultant is? Could it be something different? It means something different to different people. So it could mean that I help develop businesses, or it could mean that I'm developing business for our franchise. There's a lot, so it just leaves some gray area. So that's not very explanatory, and it doesn't solve anyone's problem. So with the elevator pitch, we want to focus on what problem can we solve? And especially when we go back to, if we have researched the pain points of some, industry. Industry is easy. Like I said, it's kind of general. You don't have to know every company you're talking to, but if you know the primary industries you work with, we know their pain points, we can tailor this answer to who we're talking to. Or if we don't know who we're talking to, we can keep it a little more general. So like this one with what do you do? You can ask a related question. So if someone says, hey, hi, what do you do? I can ask, have you ever had an issue at work where your team wasn't performing at its best? And if they say yes, or if they say no, you could say, well, I'm sure you know some companies that have had that issue. That's what I do. I'm a business development consultant with Dale Carnegie Training, and I partner with organizations to increase performance by developing their key employees. That's a really general form. So that could cover lots of areas. I can tailor it if I'm talking to a company and I know they are in an industry that really needs to focus on increasing their top line revenues. I can tailor this to talk about sales and top line revenues, because we also do that. If it's someone who I think can really benefit from giving awesome presentations, we also do training on presentation training. So I can tailor it to that specific need. Now, if you're not in a position where you can turn around and ask a question, still just being able to explain, this, how I can help, like your results driven answer is really helpful. There's not a lot of gray area there. It doesn't give a ton of detail about exactly what we do and how we do it. I mean, it tells what we do, but doesn't tell how we do that. So it invites some more conversation. It gets people interested in knowing a little bit more about what they do, because when they see that, they're like, oh, wow, how do you do that? And they're going to ask some questions. So it gives us an opportunity, rather than just spitting a bunch of information at them when we meet them. It gives us an opportunity to create more conversation around what we do, which is, of course, always a good thing. Now, when we're at the event, some things to really keep in mind if we're wanting to up our game, and if we're really wanting to stand out from other people that they're talking to maybe at the event, is we really want to make that person feel special. We want to focus on that person, care about them. We're not hunting people. So we're networking and we're prospecting. We are not hunting people. We are actually making the connections. And sometimes people look at, oh, how many people can I get from this networking event? When we approach it as if we're hunting people, it's just going to create a whole different feeling. So we have to really set that intention of, hey, I'm going to make some connections with people that, just like Kelly said, that person might not have anything to do with your goal at that moment, but they may know someone down the road. Or if they really enjoyed you and they really think a lot of you after meeting you, they're likely to refer you to people. So we really want to make that person feel special. And the first way is to, and this is a Dale Carnegie principle. So Dale Carnegie and his team, like 100 years ago, they took 2 years to go all over the world and research what made people successful and what held them back. So they interviewed hundreds and hundreds, or thousands maybe, of successful people and asked them those 2 questions. What made you successful? What held you back? Then they created 30 principles based on those answers that really play into creating success. So this one is, remember that a person's name is the sweetest, or is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. So the thing to be really careful with about using people's names is, I don't know how many of you, I've experienced this, that sometimes some people can get a little creepy with how much they use your name, and it can be a turnoff. So we want to be careful to not overuse it. And, I don't know if you've ever experienced someone where they're just constantly using their name. In fact, I used to not like using people's names because I had experienced someone like that, and it was just a turnoff. So there are 3, and we have a whole half of a section of one of our Dale Carnegie courses dedicated to how to remember people's names. We obviously don't have time to do that here because it's like a half day. So I'm just going to give you a little cheat here. There are 3 natural places to use a person's name. So the first is, just like in the picture, when you meet someone, hi, Catherine, it's so nice to meet you. So you can use their name initially, and then there's usually some natural place in the conversation to use their name again. So I could be like, so Catherine, how are these business workshops that you're putting on working, or just ask some question about that to be able to use the person's name. And then of course, when we part from that person, Catherine, it's such a pleasure to meet you. So we can do it in 3 places. By repeating it initially when we meet the person, it helps us remember their name during the conversation, which is always handy. I've had times where I've been paying attention to like what they were saying and not really trying to commit their name to memory. And then it's really embarrassing if you have to say, no, what was your name again? People are always nice about it, but it doesn't feel good to have to do that. So 3 natural places to use a name. So it makes them feel good, makes them feel like you're really paying attention to them, and it also helps you remember their name, which is always beneficial. And the other thing that really for making a person feel really important, or like you really care about getting to know them, these are a couple more principles. Become genuinely interested in the other person. So this is kind of setting aside what we're interested in, and really focusing on them. So one thing I like to really do when I'm talking to people, and it's not just to, it's just how I operate, is if I'm in a group of a bunch of people and I'm talking to a person, it's like they're the only person in the room. The rest of the room kind of disappears. Have you ever talked to a person where they're talking to you, but they're like looking around you and they're looking for the next person to talk to, and they're not really paying attention to you? I was on a virtual networking event recently, and there was no one else there because we were in like a virtual room together. But this guy was like looking around at things on his desk, and like I guess he was disorganized in what he was doing, and it was really distracting, and it was really like, wow, this is not a person that I feel like I'm connecting with, because they're not even paying attention to me, and we're the only 2 people on the call. So we don't want to give that impression to people. We don't want to be looking around. Even if we do have other people that we're looking for or want to meet, when we're talking to that person, we want to focus on that person. So they should feel like they are the only person in the room. And another thing is, sometimes we try to be interesting to make people want to talk to us. But actually, when we are interested in other people, when we set aside that aspect and we just become really interested in them, that's when they want to talk to us. And we leave them feeling special, we leave them feeling important, and we really deepen that connection that we made, so that the next time they see us coming, they're excited to see us. Or when we call them afterwards, they're excited to talk to us because we made them feel special. We made them feel like we're interested in them, which we are. So that's the whole point, genuinely interested. So we're not pretending to be interested, we're actually genuinely interested. And it's fun to learn about people. You can learn all kinds of things from all different people. It doesn't matter who they are. I've found that we can take lessons from every single person we encounter in life. And it's just always a good thing to become interested in learning about other people and to be a good listener. So when we encourage others to talk about themselves, really, if we think about it, the other person should be doing about 80% of the talking. So we can ask some questions. I've had lots of times where I've been talking to someone, I've asked them all about them, I've learned all kinds of information about them, and they haven't really asked me anything about myself, and that's fine with me. But it's nice because I know a lot about them. So when I'm talking to them later for business or personal, if I meet them out and about, I have a lot to ask them about, and to take notes on these, obviously, when you have a chance to write these things down. So really focus on the other person. When we're asking questions, another thing I used to not be excellent at is asking open-ended questions. So, if you ask, hey, how do you like your job? Yeah, I like it. Or do you like your job? Yes. It's done. You have to ask another question. And we don't want to feel like we're grilling the person and just ask a bunch of yes or no questions. So we could say, tell me about your job. Or to use their name, Catherine, tell me a little bit about your job. So open-ended questions invite a lot of discussion. When we ask open-ended questions, we often learn a lot about the other person that then we can find similarities to that really create a lot of rapport when we can be like, oh my gosh, you love hunting, whatever, so do I, or you love whatever it might be. So just open-ended questions. And tell me about your family. So the kinds of questions we want to ask when we're focusing on the person are things like questions about their family, questions about their position at work, questions about hobbies that they like to have. And the same thing, like we have a whole section dedicated to this in Dale Carnegie, and it's really awesome to just create some conversation around it. I don't have time to go through it here, but lots of things to really categories to ask people. And lots of times when you ask them a question in those categories, they're going to turn around and ask you a question too. And it just creates a lot of back and forth. It's fun in the class to try it because you can't even get through all the questions because you just find so much common ground to talk about. So open-ended questions just create a lot of great conversation. And another is ask, what is your top priority right now at XYZ company? So let's say someone's a sales director and you know that. So as a sales director at XYZ company, what's your top priority right now? So not only is that an open-ended question and it gets the person to talk about something that they're really focused on, but when we go to follow up later, if we have a solution that fits with their top priority, this question is like gold. We can go back and just be like, hey, I know you said your top priority was this. And we can tailor what we do to fit with what we know their top priority is. So if you can get that question in, that's really helpful at a networking event. And then continuing the conversation. So we really want to create those connections with people. We want to just be able to create that like personal connection. And like Kelly was talking about some of her stories, things that you're passionate about, things that we just want to be able to, maybe become friends with someone or work with them or be able to help them with their goals. To learn, to be able to share their information, anything like that. So when we have been talking to someone for a while, let's say our goal is to talk to 10 people, meet 10 new people at the networking event. So we've been talking to someone for a while, we're having interesting conversation. We can say, hey, let's continue the conversation, or I'd love to continue this conversation with you. How about if I give you a call? So, or I'd love to continue this conversation with you, but there are a few more people that I have to meet while I'm here, or I told Ross that I would connect with him while I'm here. So let's continue this conversation. And the thing with continuing the conversation, and this kind of goes back to the digital business card where I was talking about it, is I never like to leave the ball in someone else's court. It's not a good practice. When we leave the ball in someone else's court, that's when we're sitting around waiting for them to call, hoping that they'll call, wondering if they don't want to talk to us or whatever. Our imagination can go crazy. So we have to really control that talk, that self-talk. But if we keep the ball in our court and say, hey, I'll give you a call, then we don't have to sit around wondering. And the best thing is if we say, hey, I'll give you a call so we can continue this conversation. If you have your calendar with you or have a general idea of what your week looks like, how about if I give you a call on Wednesday? What's best for you, morning or afternoon? Or if you both have digital calendars, you can get your calendar out and set up a specific time to call would be the most ideal thing. I'm sure all of you know that you never want to say, when is a good time for me to call you? Because most people are going to look at their schedules and be like, wow, well, I'm super busy, so I really don't know. So we always want to give people a couple choices about when we're going to talk again. And they'll tell you if neither choice works, and then we can go to another choice. The other thing that's really beneficial in networking, and so I'm talking more about networking events. And if we're doing a digital networking event, it's pretty easy because we're usually by our computer to be able to take notes. I meet a lot of people just out and about. So I've met people in stores before that I've started a conversation with and then continued the business conversation later, or I've done in different businesses, I've done a lot of like going into businesses to meet people. And so I always take the time, even if I'm at a networking event, if I don't think I'm going to remember the specifics, I'll take the time to make a few notes to myself. If I have their business card, I will just write it on the back of their business card real quick. So I remember like some of the key things about that person, the things that were important to them, maybe their priority at work, some of the things I can follow up on later. So write some notes on the business card, or I text myself. So I text myself a lot. We've usually got our phones with us. So we can just take a minute, text ourselves a few things about that person. Sometimes I like to do that anyway in case I somehow misplace their business card. So I always try to have a specific place that I'm going to put their business cards when they hand them to me. So some notes to ourselves. That's really important in follow-up. Always lots of notes on our clients or people that we've met, prospects, just because it's when you can say, hey, I know your son was having surgery. How did his surgery go? When you can say those kinds of things to people, it means a lot to them when you're asking. Like I have a lot of clients who are really strong family people. So when I can ask about their family members, it makes them feel really good. And it's nice to be able to even use their family members' names if they've talked about them. And then of course, the follow-up call. We want to be sure and actually make the follow-up call. And sometimes I like to do a call. It's easier to say, hey, I'll text you. It's also easier to be ignored in a text. People just don't feel the need sometimes, or they open the text and they forget. So I would just like to say, hey, I'll give you a call, because they could be really excited while they're talking to you in person. They can really feel a great connection with you and really enjoy meeting you at the event. But then that kind of fades away. They don't necessarily remember every person that they encountered. Hopefully, when you've done these things and you've done a better job of connecting than most people do, you leave them with a feeling that really makes them want to talk to you again. Because we have to remember 7% of how people feel after a conversation, or what they get out of a conversation, 7% is our words. 93% is our tone and our body language. So when we're really interested in the other person, and we show that with our body language, our tone, the way we're focusing on them, people don't remember what you say necessarily, but they always remember the feeling that you left them with. So if we leave them with a really great feeling, they're going to want to talk to us again. So when we get on a phone call and they hear our voice again, and they hear the enthusiasm in our voice, which hopefully we have, if not, we need to do some jumping jacks or something before we get on the call. So when they hear the enthusiasm again, they remember why they enjoyed talking to you at the networking event. You cannot get that through a text. And sometimes I know texts are convenient. Sometimes I have to text. Sometimes I'll call and then follow up with the text if they don't, if I leave a message, or if they don't answer, or I've tried a couple times and can't get back with them. But it's just good to have that follow-up call, and you can accomplish a lot in a call that sometimes it takes a little more back and forth. And one thing around the calling people after an event that I think is super important is we all tell ourselves stories, and we can get really caught up in, oh, wow, this person doesn't want to talk to me. Oh my gosh, they just said that they wanted to talk to me at the event because they were being nice. Like, there are lots of stories we can tell ourselves. So if someone is not, not contacting us back, maybe we should tell ourselves a story that they dropped their phone in the toilet and they don't have a phone right now, and they'll get back with us. we have to be really careful about what we say. That's something I heard a long time ago, and it's funny, but it's so true. It's really easy to get in our head and get caught up, because most of us in business are always putting ourselves out there. And just like Kelly said, if we're not uncomfortable, we're not growing. So we need to be careful what we say to ourselves, so we can make ourselves continue to get uncomfortable and really get, go to the next level. So, when we get really intentional about our networking and really become good at creating connections with people, we can create those results that result in growth for our businesses from networking. So thank you all. I know now is the time where if anyone has questions, I think Catherine's going to monitor that and read the questions to me maybe. So thank you all for taking the time to attend this today, and hopefully you gained something new that you didn't already know before.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Some really good information there. We don't have any questions in the Q&A box yet, but
Okay.
we do have a few people who are tuning in. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to either drop it in the comments or in the Q&A tool.
All right.
And if you're on Facebook tuning in, you can just drop them in the comments there.
Okay, awesome.
While we're waiting for other questions to, oh, here we do have one.
Okay.
Okay.
That was fast.
You mentioned a digital networking event. From your experience, what is different and needs to be a focus in the digital event?
In the digital event, I've only attended one of those recently, and honestly, it wasn't a lot different. So the one that I attended, I imagine it depends on what platform you're on partially, but the one I attended, it had breakout rooms where it was really cool. It matched you to, I forget, it's called Hopin or something. But it matched you to a person, just whoever happened to be free, and then you would be one-on-one, face-to-face with that person. And so you had 5 minutes. So that is one thing that's really important, is if it's a platform like that, it's a timed meeting. And after 5 minutes, you're not in that room anymore with that person. So I would say if you're getting ready to attend a digital event, to be really focused on what you're going to talk about, what questions you're going to ask, getting the people's contact information. I didn't know how it worked ahead of time, and so the first person and I were talking, and we just were done. So I had the person's name, but and then we did connect through the platform to be able to exchange contact information. But be really intentional about what you're asking. It was similar to talking to someone on Zoom. So I felt like you could still create a pretty good connection with body language. I guess that's one thing I think to focus on, still bringing out your personality. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we can digitally, but we really can. We can bring our personality out even on the phone with somebody. They can tell if we're smiling, or they can tell our energy level. So really still bring your personality, but it's not a whole lot different other than the fact that you're limited on time. I haven't seen one where it's like a whole group of people and you're trying to network with multiple people. Did that answer that question, hopefully? So Catherine, I don't know if you are muted, so I don't know if you have any other questions there yet.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I guess I was muted.
I know, I was like, I don't think you're intending to be muted.
But I wasn't believing it. So
funny.
yes, it looks like that answered Ross's question about the
Okay, good.
digital networking event. And while we're on the topic of digital things. A digital business card was something that I hadn't heard about before. Is that similar to like just an image that you have on your phone that you can then text to someone,
Yes.
or are there other, is it an app that you get, or?
So there are several ways. I have found a couple of digital business card apps, but none of them were good enough that I could recommend them. I finally just gave up on the whole digital business card app. I'm sure there's probably one out there that's awesome. So there are a couple of ways to do it. You can take a picture of your business card and, you know, trim it so it's just the business card, so you have that to send people. I also have made like a little simpler business card actually on, oh gosh darn it, I can't think of the app that I've got now. I want to say Pinterest, but that's not the right thing. Let me grab my phone and I'll look at that real quick. And so what I did is I just took an image. So I actually used this picture here. So I used a picture and, oh, it's Pic Collage. So I removed the water. I paid like $2.99 to remove the watermark on Pic Collage. And it would look similar to this, honestly. So I had a picture and then I had my information, and then I cropped it to look like a business card. So it was more rectangular instead of just square like it would be on Pic Collage normally. And then I just saved that in my pictures, or because I text a lot of things to myself, I also texted it to myself so I could easily access it. Like if I'm getting ready to attend a networking event, I'll text it to myself. So it's right on the top of my text, so I can really easily just click on that and forward it to someone. It doesn't give a lot of detail on how to make it. It's literally just what you would normally have on there. Like I said, this what's on the screen now literally looks about like what I would do for a digital business card. The words might be a little small, so I think I did maybe the picture in the top left-hand corner and did the words beside it and then underneath it. And then I like to put like a quote or something, maybe my favorite quote on there, or a quote relating to your business. But it's a really nice way to be sure, especially if you're out and about. I have found at networking events, people are really open to giving you their business card. But if I meet people out and about in public and they don't really know me, you know, previously, and we weren't specifically at a networking event, it's a really good way to just be like, hey, you know, I use digital business cards. Here, I'll send you my business card. Like I said, you look down at your phone, you know, okay, what's your number? And you've got the text opened up. You're ready to put their number in. And when you're looking down at your phone and you're silent and you just wait, they usually give you their number. And then you can send it to them right there and you say, oh, here, yeah, I heard a ding on your phone, or, oh, check and make sure that came through. And that way, while you're right there with them, you're making sure that that was actually their number. And then you can easily follow up. So the digital business cards definitely offer some advantages over paper business cards.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so there's another question. What advice do you have to initially connect with people via LinkedIn?
Via LinkedIn. I am not a LinkedIn expert, so I don't have a ton of expertise on that. I generally would, when I do try to connect with them, if it's someone that isn't going to know who I am, you know, I might connect with them and, or I might send them a connection request and then a message too that says, hey, I know like some specific fact about their company and would love to learn more about what you do at the company. Or lots of times the good thing is you can find some connections that they have as well. And that might be a good conversation if we can just say, hey, I learned a little bit about your company from so-and-so, just wanted to connect with you. Like I said, I am not the best LinkedIn expert, but I need to increase my skills on using that. So if anyone has any awesome tips for LinkedIn and wants to come on and answer, that's fine with me.
Thanks. With the follow-up for after you've made a connection, do you have a personal commitment to get back with the people you meet in a certain time frame, a week, 2 weeks, sooner?
Yes, generally if you can get back with them in 24 hours, that's best. That's when they're still most excited after meeting you. 48 hours max. So at least attempt, if you can't reach them, okay, but at least attempt it within 48 hours, because when you wait too long, it's just like, obviously if it's on a Friday, you're probably not going to connect with them on the weekend. I don't feel like most networking events are on Fridays, but if they are, then you could connect with them on Monday, but you really want to do it while they're still excited about meeting you.
Thank you. Good advice. Let's
You're
see,
welcome.
Kelly says she likes the suggestion to ask a question back first when someone asks you what you do.
Yes, that can be helpful.
When you were talking about asking people, the get to know you kind of questions, maybe about their family or other things like that, are there questions that are generally off limits? I mean, obviously there's certain questions that are off limits, but
Right.
are there aspects, times when you shouldn't ask about family, or are there other guidelines as to when to know that sort of question is okay? And kind of along with that, are there maybe some cross-cultural communication aspects to keep in mind? Because maybe a question that I would think is just run-of-the-mill and ordinary might not strike someone else in the same way.
Right. So yes, cross-culturally, if you know you're going to, you might want to keep it more business, just if you're not sure how that culture views different types of questions. So in that case, if you're really not sure, I would just keep it to business and about their job for sure. In general, and what we teach in Dale Carnegie is really to go ahead and ask the questions, obviously not getting too personal, like Catherine said when she laughed when she said there were questions that were off limits. But to go ahead and ask the questions about, hey, tell me a little bit about your family. One thing I definitely would not say is, hey, do you have kids? Because some people, like, I'm adopted, and some people can't have kids. So I don't like to ask those kinds of questions, but just tell me about your family. That's a really general statement. Could be anyone in their family. So we really promote just getting to know the person as a person, and also letting that person see you as a person. Because if you're just all about business and you don't have any other ways to create rapport, sometimes that can be a little bit tougher, and they want to see you lots of times be a little more real, especially nowadays. Honestly, with so many people working from home, it's created a whole different dynamic. People want to know more about people personally. They want to know, like, hey, your kids are in the background while you're working. Oh, they want to know a little bit about your family. And because of the working from home culture, like, you can see your personal belongings in the background lots of times, your pictures and things like that. So that's changed a lot in the last 6 months. It's become really an important part of doing business to connect with the person on a little more personal level than just strictly business. So right now that's really important. But in general, in Dale Carnegie, we teach the whole, it's family, about your job, hobbies. Do you like to travel, or where do you travel? Do you travel for work? Ideas that are important to people. So if you want to keep it to like business and ideas, tell me your thoughts on casual dress at work. It could be anything. So yeah, know your audience. The cross-cultural differences, definitely, I feel like if you don't know what is acceptable, to just keep it pretty strictly to business and maybe ideas.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have other questions that you'd like to submit? I'll just give it a few more seconds here. Okay, looks like we don't have any others coming in.
Okay.
Rebecca, do you have any parting thoughts to share before we go ahead and close this session?
Well, I just wanted to thank you. And this is such an awesome series. And and really it was great to hear everything that Kelly said. Just she had so many good lessons in there and things that we really need to keep in mind. So the whole, I'm looking at my notes here, that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing, there's power in partnership, and small choices add up to big results. And all of those come into play so much in applying what we've just gone through in the PowerPoint. It's just very important to really be intentional with our networking. And just like when Kelly was saying power in the partnership, that really hit home with me, because I always, I might meet someone who I'm like, oh, that's not really an industry or a business that we maybe work as much with. But then I have to go back to, okay, I'm in front of this person for a reason. And I've had so many connections that have led to other connections later on. So it's just really important to, create that partnership and really look at each person as, hey, this person matters, and this person could be helpful to my success, and I could be helpful to their success.
Thank you. I think that sometimes, networking can feel a little bit contrived, but I really appreciate, the idea of really connecting with the actual people. And that's kind of what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like when you just focus on like business, and it makes people feel more like a number than like a person that really matters. And even though, yes, they're part of a business, they're first and foremost a person. And when we care about people first, the rest of it just all, that comes into play with everything else that we do.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. And thank you also to Kelly for joining us today.
You're welcome, Catherine. It was my pleasure.
And our next
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our next section. See if this will change. There we go. Next week, we will be hearing from Raylana Anderson of Anderson Consulting, and she's going to be talking about how to hire and retain employees who advocate the culture of your business. You can find the link to attend at chilipld.org or in the event on the Chillicothe Public Library's Facebook page. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. When I do close the event, those of you who are attending through Zoom will be prompted to fill out a survey. Please do fill out and submit the survey, and if you want to enter to win a prize, make sure that you do include your name and contact info. Remember, you can enter every time you attend a session. So even if you entered last time, you can do so again today. Thank you, folks. Have a good afternoon and take care.